Okay, so now before we go to our next session, which is coming up, we'll be showing you a short film. And this film is about 6 minutes long, and it speaks to different men and what they have been dealing with or going through, because the next session is about mental health.
I used to think silence was strength, that men don't break, we just rebuild quietly. But when the night takes something from you and the world laughs when you try to name it, you start to realize silence buries you. Slow, quiet, deep, it buries your life. The sun would rise on a crime no one could see. No blood, no bruises, just a man who can't move. Tara's text, we need to talk. And my wife, Adana, beside me, watching, staring at me, like she already knows. I'm thinking it's business, simple, clean. Her silence is louder than my truth. So let's start from the beginning, yeah? You see, it all starts like any other celebration. A deal closed, a drink shared, music, laughter. Tara says my name like she owns it. Then, nothing. Just fragments, heat, darkness. And when I wake up, I call my friend Shola. He stirs half smiling, like he doesn't believe me. You say she drugged you? I nod. He leans back for a moment, realizes that I'm serious. Get it on record, brah. Don't let her rewrite your story. Hmm. The Lord might hear me, but society never will. The police investigation drags on. People start whispering. Why didn't he say something earlier? You sure it wasn't consensual? Questions that cut deeper than the truth itself. Everywhere it goes, like their eyes are saying it. He asked for it. Blood tests, toxicology, the whole lot. Something shows up in my system. The type of substance used in drug facilitated assault that freezes your body but keeps your eyes open, watching, disoriented, date rape drugs. What the heck? They asked if I knew Morenike, a pharmacist, Tara's friend. She supplied the substance. Turns out it wasn't her first time. Prescription traced back to her. The officer looks at me. We can pursue it if you're sure. Sure? How can one be sure when your own memory betrays you? The report was paper, not justice, ink, not truth. Still, it was something. My name, my voice, on record, yeah? Morenike. And there she is, standing beside Tara. I ask her what she gave me that night, what she took from me. She looks at me dead in the eyes and says, don't confuse regret for weakness. That's when I understood. The world will believe her smirk. Tara smiles, smooth, calm, too calm, practiced. Then she says, I'm pregnant. Pregnant? The word just hangs there like smoke, thick, choking, cold, like nothing happened. Just another business transaction. She doesn't see what she did as wrong. She sees it as leverage. She says, there is a solution and understanding. Whew. Just how can she be pregnant? I don't even remember touching her. I keep telling myself it's nothing, a blur, a bad dream, but the body remembers even when the mind can't. Air feels thick, like guilt you didn't earn. My chest tightens, my head pounds. No one tells you what it's like to wake up and realize your body's been borrowed without your permission. To carry silence like a scar no one sees. You start doubting yourself, your memory, your manhood. And when you finally speak, they laugh, tell you to move on. Because real men don't talk about these things. They told me I should be flattered, and any man would be lucky. But I don't feel lucky. I feel off, like something has been taken. They'll say I'm lying. They'll say I wanted it, but they'll never say the truth. because the truth makes them uncomfortable. My wife, Adana, lives quietly, doesn't even cry. For days, she barely speaks, just moves around the house like a shadow, packing in silence, breathing judgment, the kind that doesn't need words. You had an erection, Kenan. You must have wanted it. Wanted it? You're too powerful to be powerless. She drops the newspaper on the table like a verdict. Headlines: Billionaire claims victim. Then she looks at me, not angry, just pity. And that's when I know I've lost her. Not because she doesn't love me, but because she can't believe me. Somehow, this hurts even more. Then turns and walks away. The door doesn't slam, it just clicks, soft, final, louder than any gunshot. I didn't cheat. I wasn't seduced. I was raped. Sometimes the victim wears a suit, not scars.
I see the faces. I hope you understood the film. Yes? It's talking about what happens to different women. So the question came up, why is it that when a woman drugs a man, it's called seduction? And when a man drugs a woman, it's called rape. So it has to do with male rape, which is an unspoken silence that men hardly talk about. So that's what the film is about. So thank you for watching. And then now we move on to our next session, which is dealing with mental health, the quiet crisis, stillness as strategy.
So we're going to speak about the silent crisis, a subject very dear to all of us, personally and professionally. Some people are open to discussing the crisis, others are not. And I'm going to take a moment. Mike has gone. Hello? Yeah. So I'm going to take a moment to just give us a chance to exhale. Just, it's very good for your nervous system. As a matter of fact, I should teach you one of the tricks of the trade. Many of my clients know it. Some of them are sitting here, but they will never admit they're my clients. And that's okay, because they have the confidentiality clause. Angela and I always joke that we only have one client in common, and that client is Femi. And he's not our client anymore. So there you go. Is Femi laughing? Yes. He's chuckling. Yes. But he's written a fantastic book. He has made some copies available today. And he's also going to speak about his experience. But before we get started, because we've all been sitting for quite a while, I'm going to teach you a little trick to help to soothe your nervous system. And I just taught this yesterday to the quiet architect. So we're going to start by taking 2 deep in breaths, and then we're going to exhale. So you're going to watch me do it, and then you're going to do it. And when you do it, you're going to drop your shoulders. So let me demonstrate. Get comfortable, and let me demonstrate. It's really important, because what happens is when you're in stress, when you're in anxiety, when you're grieving, you tighten up, and it affects your nervous system. And what happens is that it gets implanted into your nervous system. And when something comes out, triggers you, it recoils and comes back again. So this is like the most basic thing you can do to relax your nervous system. All right? So I see people stretching, closing their eyes, and all of that. So here's how I do it. It's very simple, and nobody will even know you're doing it. So the lady who is leaning forward, you have to sit up. Yes. When you sit this way, you're holding it in. When you sit up, you're going to let it out. All right? So in breaths. Drop your shoulders. Drop your shoulders. Another one. You had to do it 4 times. And one last time. When you're anxious, when you're stressed, when you just want to really exhale, because many of us think we're actually exhaling, you are not exhaling. If you're not taking in a breath that fills in your stomach, you have not inhaled properly, let alone to exhale. But if you can learn to do this, you will make a massive difference in your life in terms of dealing with stress, anxiety, grief, the unexpected, worry. You don't need it in your life. It will only cause you more trauma and more anxiety. I'm going to turn to my, how do I describe Angela? I've known Angela for over 50 years. Dr. Angela and I actually were in secondary school together. We were for a very brief period, and then we left, and then we reconnected. We're in the similar field, and we worked together. So there's the disclaimer there. So you know I know her quite well, and we work together. And of course, I've already given the other disclaimer that Femi Fawora is was a client of ours, and he's become a very cherished friend. And I actually think of him as a family member now, but we've worked together before, and he will be speaking to his book. Dr. Angela, let me come to you, and let's talk about the quiet crisis and why it is so difficult for people to address the quiet crisis.
My name again is Angela Onwanibe. I'm a psychiatrist in the US. So I had the privilege of growing up in Nigeria and in Lagos and meeting Amma in school. I went to Holy Child, and then obviously went to medical school at Enugu campus, University of Nigeria, to all the lions and lionesses out there. But I practiced psychiatry in the US now for 30 years. And I came here many, many years ago, part of the brain drain that all of us have, participated in is coming out of Nigeria. I've been here for 30 years. And I know we talk about the quiet crisis. And I think in the US, I'm going to defer a lot of that to Femi to talk about, how that crisis appears. But here, especially since COVID, the crisis hasn't been that quiet anymore. And one of the things we encourage in mental health is kind of talk things out, talk about things, make the conversations very, granular, even at your home dinner table. I mean, when my kids were young, every Sunday, they would hate coming to breakfast because we had this family breakfast. And I would say, okay, so the PHQ2 are 2 questions that you ask everybody around you. They're like brief questionnaires about mental health and how is somebody doing. So one of the question number 1 is, how have you been feeling in the last 2 weeks? Have you had a decrease in pleasure in your usual activities? And question number 2 would be, have you found yourself feeling low, or has your mood been low? And I think they're screening questions. So, people in the mental health industry will be very familiar with that. But how do you make these 2 screening questions part of everyday conversation with your colleagues, with your kids, with your family, with your friends, with your significant other? Because the answer yes to any of these gives you an insight into that quiet stillness and that quiet life and the quiet mind you're talking about and the crisis. Because these are like flags. And once you see those red flags and you have to go deeper, you do have to get in touch with a mental health professional. Getting a mental health professional, or talking with a therapist, or talking with your spiritual advisor or your pastor doesn't mean you're going to get on medication, which is a stigma around mental health. And I'm so happy to see Femi here, who's a dear friend now. And I always refer to him as my only patient. I've paid all my mortgage in 30 years from just the one patient. And the reason why we say that is that stigma of mental health, where nobody wants to admit that they see a psychiatrist or they see a mental health counselor. I have nobody, one of the first things they told us when we started our training in psychiatry at Georgetown was, if you're somebody who is really wanting to be a doctor and interested in being seen as a doctor, psychiatry is not for you, so just get out. Because nobody's ever going to say, Angela is my doctor. Nobody. And that's true. I have a lot of friends, we're all colleagues of I've been out of medical school. This is my 42nd year out of medical school at Enugu campus, where, the great class of 1984, 85. So, but nobody would ever say now, oh, Angela is my doctor. But I have a lot of my friends that I'm surrounded with, oh, my doctor is so great. My children's doctor, this doctor. So part of that is a stigma. And so just making those 2 questions part of everyday conversation would be a great way to break through that silence. Just making it part of your roundtable conversation. How are you doing today? Yeah, how are you doing today? Have you found that in the last couple of weeks you've had low energy, or not as interested in what you do every day? And if the person says yes, then that proves a different question. You don't have to be a mental health provider to ask those two questions. I'm going to stop and listen to what everybody else has to say.
Thank you for saying that. And it is true. We never ever talk about our clients, but we always say Femi because he's open and he's allowed us to use him as, what's the word? The proof that we're actually doing something, because we really can't talk about it. We're doing something. We really are, especially when it's no longer considered a profession. That's another topic for us to deal with at another time. I want to turn to you, Femi, because you've written a book about your experience and the outcome of having mental crises. I'm going to keep using the word crises for now because I think it's the best word. Tell us, what led you to writing this book?
First, I have not actually thanked Dr. Anja for inviting me to speak here, so I'd like to use this opportunity to thank her. Though she's my friend, I should not take her for granted. Again, Dr. Angela has also become a very dear friend. It's good to be here in her presence and for her to speak so highly of me. I'm humbled. Now, let's get down to I think the best place we can start is why I wrote the book, because there's a reason I wrote the book. The reason I wrote the book came from a place of I endured such suffering that, in my kind of not childish way, in a basic way, I never wanted anyone again to struggle in that way. People will to an extent, but not if I could give them something that could be of help. Do you understand? So in 2020, I made a commitment to write a book. As I said in my book, I actually posted a number of things on my Instagram page that I don't think were appropriate for the age. Earlier this year, a friend and my wife said, Femi, I think you have a book to write. And then the publisher came, and I gave them a book in an hour and a half because it was, as I said, it was at the tip of my tongue. And then, of course, we had to edit the book, make it readable, make it interesting, put a few stories that were funny. Just not make it too hard going, like a textbook. It had to be a story, a real story about a real person, about what he went through, and who are the characters that surrounded him? What roles did they play? So for me, it now became two things. One, deliberately, and one accidentally. So I wrote a book in order to help people who might be in need of help when undergoing a mental health crisis. And secondly, by writing the book, this whole stigma, one patient thing you're talking about, I'm sorry, it's all gone. Because if it was a form of release, I wrote the book and I was relieved that I told my story. And again, going back to the first talk about how did you become successful? Do you understand? It's the same thing. If I'm writing a book, I'm going to write the best book that I can write. And again, I say the book does three things. One, it's to help. Two, it's the personal habits that I described in the first session, being on time, delivering, right? Three, it's using those same skills to write a book, i.e., if I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write the best book that I can write. I'm going to blow convention out of the sea or blow it up, okay? And then I get comments like, we've seen such strength in your vulnerability. I did not think of the word vulnerability when I was writing the book. I had just had a book to write. And Femi had the best book to write that he could write, okay? If the book is going to be helpful, it has to be authentic. I'm not telling her stories. Do you see what I'm saying? So that was the point. The book had not because I didn't make it authentic because I thought it was a thing. I didn't know Dr. Angela was going to say I'm going to be the first person ever going to tell her that I'm her only patient. I just said it. I said it because I said it. I did it. I didn't think there was going to be any salutations from it. I'm happy that it's got there, right? But that was not the aim. The aim was if you're in a situation. I said, there's some things I'll pick from the book. Get the best people, okay? like consultants. There's a gentleman in my book launch that was my QS when I was building my building in Nigeria. I had to use the opportunity to thank him. He's as I said, the best QS in Nigeria. Get the best that your money can get you to. No different from a comment that was made about Dr. Kingsley and prostate cancer is not for the people who cannot afford it. Well, if he's the guy who's going to solve your problem, that's the guy you should use. I mean, you're not flying abroad to go to Harley Street or going to the Mayo Clinic at $100,000. You're going to see Dr. Kingsley right there in Victoria Island Extension. So if you can afford him, please, by all means, go and see the gentleman. He's very, He's very knowledgeable and very approachable. Okay? And again, I think Dr. Angela's talking about silence. Yes, I was silent for 3-4 years. But I think it was at the point when Dr. Angela introduced me to Dr. Amma, I started becoming more vocal. Dr. Amma, is that true or not?
It is true. Very true. Very, very true. Yes.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hello?
I
said, Dr. Amma, when I met you was the time for me to start speaking. I was there.
Yeah. You were present and you were ready
I was
for
present.
it. Yeah.
I was ready.
Yeah.
So that's the point. So yes, there's a time for silence. And yes, there is a time to speak. There is a time to talk. And I think I've heard this a lot. Talk therapy is so huge. You can't keep things hidden in your heart or in your mind. The more you speak out about them, the more strength you have against these things that are keeping you down. So, and as I said, I'd say of depression, it's a long game. It's like chess. There are no immediate answers, but at some point, things will start to fall in place.
Thank you. Ngozi, I'm going to move to you.
So I hope I've covered most of the points. If there are any more, I'm more than willing to answer if you ask me again.
Yes, there will be a question for you shortly, Fempo. I'll be right back. Ngozi, let me ask you a question. How do we build a culture of wellness?
How do we build a culture of wellness? I think it's really about being still. I think there's just too much noise around us. Everybody is busy. Everybody is multitasking. There's so much going on in everybody's life. And so people are not being still. I think if we cultivate a habit of stillness, where you can ask yourself, how do I feel? Why do I feel this way? And what help do I need? And be very honest with yourself. And like Dr. Angela said, I think COVID did an unfreezing of the stigma around therapy. There's more information out there now. People are talking more about it. And so if you need help, you have to get help. And get, as Mr. Femi said, get the best help you can get. So wellness is all about your core, really going deep into yourself and asking yourself serious questions about how you feel, why you feel that way, and what help, where do I get help, and what do I really need? I know here in this environment, there's an issue with accessibility and affordability, but going back to getting the best help is very important. So you need to do your research and get the person to help you. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela, I wanted to bring you into this conversation right now. And Segun, I'm aware that you're here. So just bear with me for a moment. Angela, one of the things that I notice, and I'm sure you will speak to this as well, is that very often the people that appear to be the most successful are the ones who are struggling silently. And so my question for you is, how do we create a better culture or environment, space, for us to help them to be able to come forth with what they're burdened with?
I think I can really just speak to what we do in the US, having unfortunately been out of Nigeria for a long time professionally. So I'm not sure what fully obtains there, but I think all the lessons are transferable. Like, first of all, to get people to speak out, there has to be an area, there has to be lack of punishment. So sometimes you speak out, like if you're at work and you say to people, you're having a bad day or you're depressed or you want to see a psychiatrist, it can automatically translate into you losing that position. So one of the things they do, especially with successful people here, I'm talking about professional groups, whether you're in tech and working for Google, whether you're a healthcare provider, because healthcare providers particularly do have a large burden of mental health issues, is to first protect that so that people don't feel that their livelihood is at risk. So if you're a healthcare provider, psychiatrist, or surgeon, anything, and you come out and say you're having mental health issues, there's part of work that allows you to seek treatment privately and say you're having these issues without you necessarily getting punished. Because if people know that, there's a hit on your income. So creating an environment that's not punitive in terms of stigmatizing. We have a lot of young people, even in schools, and the schools here are doing a better job in that way. A lot of young people suffer depression, suffer mental health issues, suffer anxiety. But, what are the resources? We talked about asking what the resources are. Sometimes when you're feeling very depressed and anxious, you can't check on what your resources are. You can't do any research. And so young people come out and say, I'm not doing really well in school. And then what is the thing that parents and all of us do? What do you mean you're not doing well? This is how much this school cost me. This is what you're going through. You have to graduate without education. So all that's punitive. And having a child come out to be able to say, I'm not doing well, how do we protect that? How does the person get more time in classes? That's what they do here now. So we call that accommodations, where a young person can actually say, I'm not doing well, and they can just report that to the counselor at school, whether it's a high school, a secondary school, a university, and automatically that young kid gets shielded. So they can have extended time for classes. They can not take those particular exams and not have their GPA reflect that. So I tell a lot of young people that are clients in school that, talk about it. Let's write a letter to your school. And they're like, oh my God, everybody will know, my teachers will know. No, they won't. So those laws over time have been embedded in the culture where the stigma is there. It's going to take a long time for that to go away. But first of all, if you speak out, are you going to be punished academically, financially, family-wise even? Are you in a divorce situation or separated from your spouse and you suddenly say you're depressed and you're seeking mental health treatment? Does your spouse's ex-spouse or ex-partner's lawyer have access to your mental health records to be able to say, no, she's not a good parent for my kids, or no, he shouldn't have access to my children? And now the laws around here have sealed that. So the person who is in court with you for child support isn't going to have access to those records. So I think first, to allow people, especially who are in high positions, to speak out, you have to kind of take away the punitive aspect. And I think now, just like Femi has demonstrated, that people are open. If you're courageous enough to talk about your story, it does get people thinking about theirs. It does get people wondering, what should I do differently? What am I not doing? If Femi can talk about it with all his background and his exposure and his, financial success, maybe I can talk about it too. So having role models that talk about this has been very helpful. We know that Chimamanda has spoken openly about her battle with depression, on CNN. We know that a lot of people in social media have talked about, their battle with mental health issues. In the US here, we have so much talk therapy that's already on your phone in forms of apps. I mean, there are 10,000 mental health apps on the phone, and many of those accessible to people all over the world. Some are good, some are bad, and that's a different conversation for another day. But the issue is that there is help out there, and you can start it, you can microdose it. We like to talk about the idea of micro-learning and microdosing. Not everybody, has the resources Femi has to get the best doctor, the best psychiatric help, the best practitioner, the best publisher, the best QS. But sometimes you can have a little bit, a free app on your phone that allows you to track your mood. You don't even need an app. How have I been feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? I still track mine 30 years in psychiatry. How have I been feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 means feeling really good. 1 means I wish this roof fell on me while I'm sitting here and I won't do anything about it. It's God's time. And then you track that with a number. And at the end of the day, you have a number, 3 today, 5 today, 7 today. And at the end of the week, you can look at that number and how many days have you been over 5? Okay, I'm doing great. How many days in a week have you been under 5? So this is very low tech, very easy to do for everybody. And if you're under 5 consistently, I need help. What kind of help can you get? Yes, you can maybe talk to Dr. Amma and say, no, but in addition to that, and you can say, okay, so something is wrong here. It's not normal, guys, to be under 5 every single day. It's just not. And so we have to kind of figure out, what is normal for us. And just because it's normal for you doesn't make it normal, because crises are every day. And the goal would be to keep your mood between a 7 and 9, so that when the crisis hits, you go to a 4 or 5, and you can still function. But if your baseline is a 5, when things happen, you're going to drop to a 2. And you can't be a 2 every day and do the things we heard about in the first session, market, scale, focus on your product, do the things that you need to do. You can't talk about prostate cancer if your mood is a 2 all the time. You can't talk to a doctor. So mental health is an integral part of physical health. It's part of your everyday resources. We all want to show up better for our parents, for our kids, most importantly. And I have a lot of kids who have been victims of parents who have mental health issues, because you're not there for them. You think just paying a bill is being there for them. It's not. And they come back and say, my mom never talked to us. I used to overhear her crying. We think we're hiding these things from our children, but they do see. Those kids have a sixth sense. And they hear those arguments, and they hear the crying at night. And she was practically just walking through the motions with life. She was never there for us. We never really heard her. She never said anything. And now, 20 years later, all those kids are in my practice, So I would say, let's just learn how to be among each other, just check in. Check in with ourselves, like Ngozi said. Check in with ourselves. One of the low-tech ways to check in is just score your mood every day and see that if you're consistently over a 6 or 7, great, you're doing good. Give yourself a pat on the back. Self-compassion, self-awareness, self-congratulation. And if you're consistently below a 5, you need help. So that's just an easy way of saying that you need someone to help you.
Quick question. Let me just do a quick check. How many of you here self-evaluate yourself on a daily basis? Not very many hands. Are you afraid of evaluating yourself? Or you don't think that it's part of your well-being? You just don't think it's part of your well-being. It's a very simple process. It's to realize your baseline first thing in the morning and throughout the day, and to be able to see the spikes, what's making me feel better or feel worse, and make a note of it. The word that I use, and my clients know that I use this word very frequently, is to bookend your day. At the end of the day, I actually check in with myself. How was today? What did you enjoy today? What wasn't so great? What triggered you? How would you rate your day? It's a very simple process. And if you need someone else to do it with you, I really encourage you to do that. The goal is to have someone else that you can check in with, or that can be honest enough to say to you, I notice you're not yourself today. Right? Very often people say, how are you? And we say, very well, thank you. Meanwhile, inside, you're a wreck. And you're aching to tell someone what's going on. That mental health, it affects your productivity and your ability to connect with other people. And if you can't do that, then you begin to go into that borrow, and this is crashed now and then. So please, I encourage you to check base with yourself every day, so that you know when you're having a really good day, as opposed to when you're having, as Angela described it, they're going to collapse over me. I'm going to change this mic. Thank you. I'll switch this one off. Yeah. So let's touch base with ourselves on a daily basis, like recommended. Now, before I go on to the next set of questions, can I just have an interaction with the audience? Are there any questions or comments that are burning right now?
I've always thought that the culture we have is a bit limiting for us to be out there doing what you want us to do. There needs to be education, to enlighten people to be able to speak. I remember when I got married newly, I had an incident, but I couldn't say it to anybody because everybody is like, keep it to yourself. That's how it was done. Even in the North, if you're pregnant and you're about to deliver, if you're going through labor and it's painful, you're told not to cry. You know, men don't cry. So these are all the things we have in our culture that limit that ability to do what you're asking us to do.
Right.
So I'm just asking you people, what's the way forward? Because a few of us has met people that have re-educated us to now come out and speak. Probably before, I will not be saying what I'm saying now. I'll just leave you say what, but I've learned a little bit. But there's so many people that what they have learned is what has been passed down to them from their parents, what they saw happen around them. This man was doing this and nobody spoke. We have a lot of young boys that are being raped by their nannies. They can't talk. You know, so many. I remember the first time I saw my period, I was crying because that week, the nanny in the house had gone outside to do something and she started bleeding. And then she had such a terrible thing. So I felt that nobody would believe me that I didn't do anything. So they would think that I did the same thing that the nanny did, you know? So these things are more of cultural than it is individual. So I want us to address it to see how people can unlearn what we have learned. Because no matter how we speak about it now, it's hard to actually convince people if we don't do the groundwork. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just say this. You're absolutely right. There is a cultural bias. It's not just in Nigeria. We see it across Africa. We see it in Asia. The way to break the cultural bias is to re-educate. And it starts with education. But it also starts with a mind shift. You know, this show is called Thinking Reimagined. Imagine a world where you could be yourself, where you could speak, where you don't have to put on the finest of clothes to dull down the pain and the agony that you're living with, right? Where you can actually say to somebody when they ask you, how are you feeling? Well, today's not a great day. And somebody will stop and listen to you. We have to practice it. Yeah, when you practice it, it absolutely works. But we have to put it in practice and we have to start in our homes and within our communities and we have to do it in schools. And unfortunately, it is not a profession that's highly rated in this society. There are very few people in the mental health space, truly in the mental health space. Ngozi has just joined us about a year ago. Is it up to a year? It's not even a year. She just joined us in this space. We need more people like Ngozi in the field who will help us to understand that wellness is beyond the physical appearance. It's actually mental. And if you don't take care of your mental health, it will affect your physical health in the long run. So I thank you for putting it out there. But my suggestion is it starts with each of us. It starts in our schools. We have to demand that this becomes a norm because it's not a norm right now. And we also have to encourage it within our community. And when somebody is not feeling well, rather than deflect, listen to them, give them the space. Create a space like this in your home, in your office, where people can speak, and don't stigmatize and don't be punitive because somebody is suffering from a mental illness or is depressed or is grieving. Grieve is another one. People don't like to grieve. Why not? Grieve is necessary for you to heal, but people want to play it down. You can grieve, and it's okay to be unhappy sometimes, but when you're unhappy for too long is the issue. Because every day cannot be a 10 and every day cannot be a 1. So what is your baseline? You have to find your baseline. And once you know your baseline, you can then see when you're dropping or going up. Yeah. But you have to do it daily. And before you know it, it's part of your natural system. And I give you a little trick. If you're feeling depressed, if you're not feeling like yourself, please go for a walk. Be active. That will help to drive all of the serotonin and all of the other enzymes in your system so you feel better about yourself. But it starts with you and then the community that you create. There was another hand. Thank you so much for that question. There was another hand that went up.
My question is, how do we get people who have a functional everyday life, but then you tend to see characters like erratic behaviors or irrational decisions being made, and you can tell that there's something off. It could be like a mental situation or like an emotional situation, but they have like a functional everyday life. Like, how do you get them to begin to understand that perhaps there's something deeper than, just being able to operate? Because this is a very heavy subject when you talk about like mental health, especially for me as well. I have like cognitive behavioral therapy, which kind of tells us how your thoughts affect your behavior, and I have all sorts of therapy on the side. So that's my question essentially. How do we get people to realize that there's something wrong with them?
Thank you. Angela, we want to take that question?
I think that's a great question. And I think I'm going to let me take half of it in terms of, what were some of the things that he found helpful when people spoke to him about times he wasn't doing well. But I think getting people to realize the insight part, it's a challenge because, people can feel accused. And a lot of people feel shame when you say this is going on. They may have thought that it's going on themselves, but then they don't know how to deal with it or they don't understand it. And so there's a lot of shame. And we all know in a society where you're not allowed, like the first person who had this question talked about, you're not allowed to cry, you're not allowed to complain. When people feel shame, they get defensive and they can, talk at you or, say things that you also don't want to hear. So I think getting people to have insight into how they are seen is really difficult. So one way I would suggest to a lot of people would be talk to someone that they trust. So because it's not everybody, you can talk to someone that they trust and say, wait, I've noticed this about, Femi, for instance. I've noticed this about him. And this is what he does in the morning. This is what he says in the afternoon. I think there's something that's off, even though he's doing really well. And the only reason why I use Femi as an example, it's never happened. It's just because, like I said, he's our number one only patient. But talking to someone they trust. So somebody who you trust comes to you in a quiet moment and also phrases that discussion with, hey, I have a few things to say. Do you have a minute? Some of this may be hard to hear. So what I teach as well in the US, and what I tell a lot of students, part of giving feedback, the idea is not to give feedback and the feedback breaks them down and hurts them, because then you don't get the outcome. And the outcome is that the student does better. So the best way to give feedback is to give it in a way that can build the person up. That way the student can now say, okay, I'm going to take this thing I've learned and then use it. So giving that feedback, hey, I have a few things I want to say to you that may be very difficult to hear, but my goal is for us to talk about it, and hopefully I can get some understanding, or hopefully you can see at a deeper level how you are affecting me. So I statements. No, there's nothing like you were doing this. If anybody comes up to you and says, you were doing this and you were doing this, everybody's going to feel attacked. But if I come up to you and say, hey, Dr. Amma, that what you said, the way I heard it and how it made me feel. Because the reason for one being concerned about another person's behavior is about how it's making them feel and how it's impacting them. So that would be the real way to go about it, is to say, this is how you're impacting me, and this is how I feel, as opposed to, this is what you were doing. Nobody wants a finger pointed at them. So I don't think it's helpful to point fingers or to explain to somebody. And the other thing I wanted to follow up on with what Dr. Amma said is about, if you don't feel good or if you're having issues, just take a walk and you will feel better. And that is true. A lot of times people will say, I'm going to implement healthy practices when I feel better. I'm going to do a walk when I feel better. I'm going to change my diet when I'm doing better, or when I go this, or when my kids grow, I'm going to get that emotional support. I'm going to build more friends. But what I want to say to supporting what Dr. Amma says is that the feeling follows the action. You don't feel good, you're not going to feel better by not acting. So I always say to people, that's part of CBT, that the second person who had the question talked about. The action follows first. So you don't feel good, one, feel it. You're not going to feel better without the action in between. So pick up the phone, call that friend. Hey, I had something I want to tell you. You're going to feel better after that call. Put on your sneakers and take a walk, even if it's just a 5-minute walk. When you come back, you're going to feel better. So the feeling, action, feeling. You can't feel good, bad, and jump to feeling good just by thinking about it. You have to act. So the feeling follows the action. So I hope that answers some of it. And Femi, I'm going to leave you to the second part of how do people tell you that they feel that things are a problem?
How do people tell you they feel that things are a problem? Well, I'm gonna jump on some of the things you said, and I hope that I can transition into answering the answer you just asked me. I was in a very bad place for about 4 years where I really didn't listen to kind of advice about exercise. My doctor in London would tell me exercise is so important, but I felt that sitting on my sofa in Lagos was a solution, and that how could exercise really, really make things better. Then I think I started becoming more active. Just before I spoke to you, I went for 2 birthdays. One I didn't really like, one I didn't like in Europe. I got to America and we started talking about different situations that could lead to better outcomes for me. And you said to me, as I famously point out, what you need is not another prescription, because we went through, as all doctors do, every prescription that I've ever taken and said, it's like, I'm sure you process in your mind, Femi, you've tried everything, right? I think that must have been part of what you were telling. And you said, what is purpose? And that's how I got to meet Dr. Amma, and she coaxed me without me knowing, out of my house. And as I said, around my compound, so to speak, down my street, so many steps. And really and truly, all these measures did actually start to work and make me feel better almost immediately, even though I did not know it. We spoke about CBT. It's in my book. It didn't work for me. But what I can tell you about any therapy that any Nigerian, we're Nigerians mainly on this group, get somebody from Africa, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Gambia, who speaks English and understands the basic precepts of our culture, which is elders take first dibs. I think I'm looking for the word priority. Do you understand? There's a culture of respect and the culture of understanding that it's not necessarily what is in your written contract that you do for a patient, because patients need care, a lot of it. Okay, so I got to the point where I started to realize that exercise was huge. I got to the point where I realized that music, for me, has always been a big thing. So basically, it's also in my book, do actually what makes you happy. I don't think that there are 2 people who have had mental health problems on this planet that have necessarily had the same cure or the same route to their happiness. Everybody's is different. Can I have more context so I can answer this question properly? I mean, I'm just sort of speaking using my own personal experience in order to steer and to guide those in the audience. Basically, what I said in my book, which I believe many copies are available, is do what makes you happy. Yes, you'll be given guidance by people like Dr. Amma or Dr. Onwanibe, but you have to search inside you, look inside, and say, what are the things that I used to do before this situation came? Was it music? In my case, it was. Was it theater? No, in my case, it was not, but it might be for you. Do you understand? Was it walking? I used to walk all the time. And now I walk, ladies and gentlemen, though I'm in London, freezing London, and I'm going to walk, the next week, I walk 10 kilometers every single day. And that is how I keep the dogs at bay. That is how I stay above 5, 6, 7. It actually works. You have to actually put the effort in to get the results you actually want. If you want something bad enough, no different from the exam, I'm sorry, you're going to work very, very hard at it. There's no free lunch in this world. You have to work as hard. So, example, Dr. Morgazu was talking about healthy habits, about prostrate. It's no different. Dr. Amma has hit the ball on the head. Mental health, physical health, the same thing. You need certain tomato juice. I drink a lot of it. No, from time to time I do. Lycopene, same. You have to find those little, I won't call them cheats, these facts of life that do make your mood and your mental health better, because the bane of your existence is low mood. That's actually another word for depression. You don't need it, and you have to find measures to make sure you maintain a good mood.
Excellent. I'm going to turn to you.
Excellent, Femi. That was well answered.
Yeah, very much so.
you.
Excellent. We certainly did a great job, didn't we, Angela? I'm going to turn to Segun very quickly because Segun created the Onix ring. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Onix ring. Anyone heard about the Onix ring? Does anybody know the Aura ring? The Onix ring is Africa's version, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. And this is the creator of the Onix ring. And I want to understand what drove you to think about creating an Onix ring?
Thanks for that. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to invite me on stage. So the background to the Onix ring is, and I think it's quite topical that we're talking about it around mental health here, is that, when COVID hit, I started focusing on wellness myself, just really being a bit more present. Before that, I was managing a fintech company and traveling all over the world and just really didn't have time for myself. What the Onix ring does is just more preventive care. So what it's doing is, as things are changing for you, as you're eating better or you're not eating better, your body is talking to you. But a lot of people don't understand how to interpret what their body is saying. So whether that's, for some people, when you eat a lot of food, after maybe a massive plate of pounded yam, your heart rate increases, right? So that's your body saying something. Is that I'm having to do a little bit more work to digest what you've just eaten. But how do you gather all of that data and interpret it in a way that you can understand? And that's essentially what the Onix ring is doing. So it's a ring that you wear and takes your stats, just very similar to maybe what an Apple Watch does, but it goes into a little bit more detail on heart rate, average heart rate, blood oxygen. Also does a lot of sleep analytics as well. And just interprets that on your phone in a way that you can understand. So, a typical use case, for example, one of the things it monitors is your body temperature. So you might find yourself traveling somewhere, and the app is able to tell you that your body temperature has been elevated for the last 2 days, and then you find out 2 days later you get sick. And then you're wondering, how did it know that you were going to get sick? Well, it doesn't know. It's just saying, this is what I observe about your body statistics. Therefore, it's a great way to just get advanced notification around what's going on with your health, at least your basic vitals, and then you can decide to take medical action about it. So that's what the Onix ring is about.
So it's technology. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging innovation on the continent. So it's technology-driven wellness, for lack of a better device, actually. How does Ngozi incorporate her practice with what you're doing? Because that's the whole idea, is making connections.
Sure. I think that, everyone should obviously take their wellness seriously, which is obviously the conversation what we're having. And I think that anyone who's interested in getting the Onix ring can get it from onixring.com on the website. There's a contact number there as well. But we're also trying to increase distribution through specialty centers. So either whether there's specialty hospitals or wellness centers. So we'll be happy to have a conversation about how we can make it available at your center if you've got a physical space. But I think it's a great way to start to understand what your body's saying to you. And then on the back of that, obviously take steps to keep your mood above 5, which is what I've learned today. Yeah. Thank you.
We definitely need to keep our moods above 5. I know that we're running out of time. We've actually run out of time, but I would like to ask if there's anyone else in the audience that has a question before I return to Femi, who has been very kind enough to donate a few of his books. And it is worth reading. He wrote it, he said, in an hour and a half. I have to tell you, I read it on the train from London to Manchester because he needed to know if I was open to him stating my name, even though he had put me in the book. He needed my permission. And literally, I read it that quickly as well. It is worth reading. And I thank you, Femi, for donating these books. And we don't have enough to go around, but we're going to come up with an idea of how we can give out what he has provided to us today. So does anyone else have a question? Or, yes, please.
So I was going to say something about music because Femi mentioned it. And I recently read a research paper on music. So the doctor said that if you there's some people that repeat their music, it's a particular song. So if you're repeating it over and over and over again, like you play it in a car or everywhere, and you don't want to listen to anything else, that is some sort of medicine for your brain, something about mental health, and something you're probably lacking. So probably a particular genre that you are listening to feeds something that is missing or a particular feeling or whatever. So I want to ask, is that research, what's it called now, credible? Is it related to what Femi also spoke to about music being something that it clings to? Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
It is known that music can be very soothing for the mind, and so we're each drawn to. He's saying something. Okay, I'll wait for him.
Okay, so in the book, I mentioned how I discovered Ashake in 2022 August, and how I listened to the Ashake album every day for the next 1 year, especially the song Organized. So I'm happy that there's medical evidence to back what I already know. If there's music that you like, there is no rule that says you cannot listen to the same song 20 times a day, if that's what makes you happy. So, madam, I think not only if you've read some kind of medical evidence, I'm practical evidence that it works. Not only that, I went to watch, it's in the book, the Ashake concert in 2022 December. I think it's the 22nd of December at a hotel. It's there how I didn't book a table how I used to, but I just stood in front of this guy and I said, this is the first time that I felt the first time I felt real joy. For those more religious of us, I heard at the Redeemed Church that happiness is a gift from God. Sorry, happiness is man-made, whereas joy is God-given. And I said in my book that at the point where I was listening to Ashake at that concert, I felt real joy. And again, Dr. Amma, if you look at my timeline, this was the beginning of real recovery. Again, before I answer any more questions, I'm also committing to giving everybody in the audience a book. So, no problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Just let me know the difference.
Thank you. We will get it across. Thank you. Thank you. So to answer your question, he's already answered it personally. Yes, it does help. But here's the other flip side. There are those when they are depressed that will listen to the music that pulls them down because it hooks them into the new place of comfort. And there are things that we do. I'm not going to give you my trade secrets here because people pay me for it. But there are things that we can do to elevate and shift them out of there. But usually, music will connect you to the core of your being, and that will allow you to heal, because there's that tonation and that sits and well with your nervous system. We started out with the nervous system. If you understand the nervous system, you will not be depressed because you will understand that from the top of your head to your feet is affected. And so the things that we do to move you so that you're at a 5 or that you can self-regulate. The issue is regulating. And when you cannot regulate, you either go up or you go down. And that's the key. So it does work. So watch out for the music you're listening to. Is it elevating you or is it keeping you in the place where you are rotting away, in which case you need to get out of it? Shift gears. and that there's a therapy that we use to do that. Yes. Another person had a question. Yes, thank you.
The issue of mental health, we are far behind, especially in Africa and Asia. I mean, we've had instances whereby when you are depressed and you tend to open up to someone that you feel you trusted, especially parents in Africa. Maybe when you have arguments later on, they tend to use it against you. That no wonder you took drugs, this one, and what do we do when you find yourself in such chaotic environment?
Well, you raise a very good point, and I know that Femi will agree with me. Nigeria is the only country I know where somebody attempts suicide and it's a crime. I've never heard such in my life. Somebody is unwell, just like you can be physically unwell, and if they attempt to kill themselves, rather than treat them, you actually tell them that they've committed a crime. There's something wrong with that statement. And each of you really needs to think about what does that say about the culture and the society, when you should be thinking about how to help them to re-regulate themselves and get on. You're thinking about how you're going to lock them up and charge them. Makes no sense in the world. It's the only country I know of. And I know also that the so-called doctors that lock people up in chains and beat them up because they're trying to beat it out of them. What are you beating out of them? They're unwell. They need treatment. And that's where the focus should be. So I really have to thank Femi for being so honest, so authentic, and willing to share his story, because his voice is probably going to help a lot of people start to speak starting today. You can speak, you can share. Yes, it might cost you some money. Yes, you might find someone who's willing to give you some free treatment or therapies, but it is absolutely necessary to take care of your mental health. You don't need to go to parties and jump around all day long. At the end of the day, you're still depressed. It hasn't done anything for you. It's just like a window paint. So rather than gloss, get on with it and treat yourself rather than spend money on clothes when you should be spending it on yourself to get yourself well. Those things will always be there. But your mental health, that's your lifeline. I'm going to very quickly ask Femi a question regarding, Ngozi has something to say. Here you go.
And as well as she's been putting up her hands as well.
Yeah.
So I just want to commend Femi. I think this book, I know a lot of young people talk about therapy, a lot of women talk about therapy, but not many men. So, I have to commend him for this book. There's a lot of avoidance of mental health services when it comes to men. Because of how the culture, how society looks at them as they should be strong, they shouldn't be vulnerable, they can't speak up about these things. It's a sign of weakness. So I'm hoping that, thank you, Femi, for this book. I'm getting a copy, thank you. But I'm also, hoping that a lot of men will take this book home as well and have those conversations with their own friends about, speaking up about these mental health challenges, if you're going through anything, and helping them and telling them why it's important for them to get help. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a question, and then I'm going to Angela. Go ahead.
Yes. But then, when you do need help, like somebody is depressed, where do they go professionally? Because the norm here is they go to churches. And they go to church, the pastor says, it's not your portion. Oh, let's pray. Yes, prayer has a part in therapy. But when somebody needs professional help in the Nigerian, what will I call it, market, it's not available easily. So where do people go?
Well,
how do they find where to
go? I'm here. Ngozi is here. Angela is available as well. The crisis in Nigeria is the very few mental health professionals, true mental health professionals. And I've heard many times that people have gone to the churches and they tell them it's not their portion. I don't know what that really means, quite frankly. and telling someone who is unwell that this is not your portion, it really doesn't sit well, because again, they need support. It's like telling the person about to kill themselves that you're going to lock them up. What difference does it make to somebody who is unwell? They might even be happy that you're going to put them somewhere where they might feel safe physically. So yes, I am happy to share my details. I am not a secret. It's easy to find me, to be honest with you, even though I keep a low profile. Ngozi's just joined us in this field, so you can always tap into her. And by the way, she used to be my school daughter, believe it or not. So you can see there's a connection here, right? And of course, Dr. Angela is also available. And I do believe that Femi is going to be doing some incredible work with his foundation, and we'll be happy to support. So please, if you want my details, I don't know how else to advertise. Many of my clients don't like me advertising, so I don't advertise, but you can easily find me, and I'm happy to support in the way that I can.
Sorry, Dr. Emma, can I?
Yes, somebody.
Here.
Oh, here you go.
Yeah, can I add that perhaps what is also required is maybe to aggregate all of these therapists or people who can give help for mental health on some sort of website, wow. Right?
You're the techie.
So we can do that right away. Interestingly, there was a friend of mine who's based in New Jersey, who's a therapist, and we've been talking about this, and we've been talking about sort of putting together a website. We will. There's something up there already, but then we can add all of the additional details to it. The website address is called thisismysafespace.com.
Oh.
So thisismysafespace.com. So if you go there now, I'm sure you'd find something on there, and we'll just extend it with all your information.
Oh, that's very kind and generous.
Thank
always
you.
Takes a techie. And Femi is an advocate that it's always important to find people who understand the nuances of your culture, because that also helps in terms of understanding how to approach you and how you can approach those that you have to live and work with, which is most important. I'm going to call on you because I know that you have a men's safe space group, and you're being very silent today. You know who I'm pointing to.
Good evening, all. I am Obi Ogenekome. I am the co-founder of Safe Space Man Cave. Instagram is safespace_cave. Okay, so community is for men to come together to be the best versions of themselves. I am not a therapist. However, when we have our sessions, everybody gets to talk. Men don't talk. But for me to get about 27 men to talk, I think the space should be doing as well as I think is doing in my head. And we have 2 sessions. One is Vulnerable Wednesday, and the other is Fix It Friday. We don't tend to fix it, but we tend to give our own life experiences. So if you get to share, you get to someone else who is suffering from something or going through something can learn. Thank you very much for allowing me to advertise myself. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, one more thing in addition. You were saying something about like a database where people can reach out and all. And there actually is something like, it's called the Mental Awareness Nigeria Initiative, MANI. It's very popular on Instagram, and it's been very, very beneficial to me and a lot of my friends. You call them up, no matter what it is, no matter what time of the day it is, 12 a.m., 1 a.m., they will pick up your call and they will connect you with someone to talk to.
This is the quiet architect. He works behind the scenes. He creates all of the videos and things that we put out. He records. And please, if we have not appealed to you, please follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn. Please do. And we're going to also put all of this on our YouTube channel, so it will always be available. Before we close out, and in honor of Femi, who has donated books, I've got one last question for you, Femi. So my last question for today has to do with the title of your book. Surviving the invisible storm. What is the invisible storm in leadership? Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer some questions that came quickly. And as I said, I never wrote a book for any personal adulation. But what I have been told by at least 20 to 50, maybe 30 readers, is that there is strength in vulnerability. Strength in vulnerability, as in I made myself very vulnerable in the book. Not intentionally, as I said, I did it because I wanted to write the best book that Femi could write. It was meaningful, okay? And as a result, I'm starting to see a lot of men who are having conversations about how they feel, about their mental health, about what they're going to say about it. So I think we've broken new ground in this regard. So strength in men speaking, for me to be vulnerable is a strength. It's not a disadvantage. It is definitely a strength to speak. The Minister of State for Health, a lovely gentleman, spoke at my book launch and spoke about the extended family. The extended family is not necessarily people in your extended family. They could be friends, they could be loved ones, they could just be people you know who you feel comfortable with and talking to. Because one of the most important themes, or one of the most important things you can do in these crises is to talk to someone. Okay? And it's whoever you're comfortable talking to. There are no rules. Yes, you have, what would I call it? You've been given certain resources, Dr. Amma. I'm talking to a lot of people. Dr. Angela is here. There's psychiatric ward in Evercare and many hospitals in Nigeria who do have good people. Okay? So there are people you can reach out to. These were just notes that I made. Dr. Angela was the same thing while I was listening to the questions.
Well, you were very good to listen to the questions and respond. The question for you is, am I audible again? The quiet storm. What is the quiet storm in leadership that very often gets neglected?
In leadership?
Yeah.
The quiet storm in this book, I don't think was the quiet storm in leadership. The quiet storm was the battle I faced for 4.5 years when I had serious depression. That was the quiet storm. Behind the Curtain is a series that Mr. Balogun writes about entrepreneurs. So really, this book, as I always say, should be written from Surulere to Banana Island, which is what were entrepreneurial skills that got you from your father's house in Surulere all the way to an apartment block in Banana Island. How did you do it? So there are two different stories. The quiet storm was the solitude and even the darkness that I faced for 4.5 years and how I overcame those two things.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, you have just given us all a reason to begin to think about how we can overcome our crises and quiet storms.
Doctor has a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Angela.
Actually, just a comment, because one thing that Femi said that was real, and what you've also said, Dr. Amma, in terms of reaching for the resources, going to hospitals in your area, going to Mani, like somebody talked about Mani. But the reality of the matter is that people are going to go to what's accessible to them, which is why I like the fact that Femi talked about your extended family, and the fact that people are going to go to the churches, and they are going to go to the people that say things. And one of the things that the US did differently, those of us in mental health and psychiatry are a very small proportion of people who see people with mental health illnesses. We see a very small percentage. Even though we're many, we don't, we still, so people are going to first go to their church, they're going to first go to primary care. So those of you who have NGOs in Nigeria, one of the things you could do was to copy what was done here, which is to go to those places and educate them. So a lot of us got grants to go and educate primary care doctors, the everyday doctor, what is depression? Don't just give the person a pill. What are the resources out there for therapy? What are some very basic therapy books and therapy apps that a person can use when they feel bad? Not everybody has the luxury of going to see a professional, a psychiatrist or therapist. It's money. I know Dr. Amma has a a free portion or a charity arm to her organization, but otherwise it's money. So, and Femi talked about all these hospitals like Evercare, it's all money. In America, we have a little bit of a different system simply because we have insurance and everybody can access healthcare if you're insured. But still, if you're insured, it's money. You have to have a job. You have to have the ability to even go and sign up an insurance plan. So what I would say is that if we have NGOs that have grants to go and educate the people who people are still going to go to. People are going to go to their church first. And so how do we, as people who are looking to educate the larger public, go to the churches and to the pastors and say, hey, can I meet with the 10 pastors in this church? I'm providing free lunch. I want to talk about depression. You're going to have people in your organization or in your church coming to you to talk about depression. These are the things that we know help. We know changing your diet. We know taking a 1 mile walk a day. We know talking to a good friend. We know coming when someone comes to you and says, I'm depressed, I'm having problems in the marriage, don't tell them it's not your portion. Tell them to do this. Tell them to listen to Ashake. Tell them to listen to music. Tell them to, so arming those people that people are going to talk to, whether we like it or not, is a way that the US was able to break through a lot of the mental health challenges. Going to the churches, going to primary care doctors, going to schools, talking to the school therapist, talking to the teacher. Sometimes the first person that hears that somebody's depressed is the teacher. And just telling the teacher, a lot of our teachers in schools in Nigeria, if you tell your teacher, I'm depressed, I'm not sure she'll know what to do with that. She'll probably call your parents. And the reaction might be to withdraw you from that school. What do you mean you're going there to talk about depression? So maybe educating those people who are always going to be we're not at the stage in our culture in Nigeria where people are going to call up the phone and talk to a psychiatrist or a therapist or go to Evercare. Basic grassroots resources, if we can find ways to educate them, they're the ones that have more outreach.
Thank you. So we're about to close this session, and I'm going to ask you, Segun, what are your final thoughts? What is the perspective that you're going to impact on the audience, or what you're going to walk away with that you're going to focus on in terms of your legacy and your purpose?
Okay, so I definitely want to invest a lot more time in using technology to make life better for community. I think that's an area that I'm quite passionate about. And so this is my safe space.com, as I said to you. I could see that it answers answers a question or a problem that was being posed in the audience. And thankfully, we had something in the pipeline already done straight away. So I think that's an area that we want to keep focusing on and sort of helping, leave the world a better place than we found it, I think.
I think for me is just recollecting the conversation about your baseline. If it's below 5 consistently for a long period of time, then get help. And I know we tend to survive. Everybody is on some kind of survival mode and just going through the motions. But at some point, you really have to ask yourself, am I putting in my best? Am I getting out my best? Am I at my best? And if the answer to those questions is no, and you know you need help, then get help. I want to also say faith-based organizations do play a very important role in mental health. They train church counselors, and so those are like first responders most of the time. People go to them. But I want to say here that they can only help you so far. Those courses are very short, maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks courses, and you become a church counselor. So they can give you the basic ABC, but if it's not helping, then get more help. Nothing is wrong going to your church or going to your pastor, but be honest with yourself and ask yourself, am I getting the help I need in these spaces? And if you're not, then you have to go out and get more help. But your baseline, if it's below 5 for a long period of time, let's do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to defer to you. Dr. Angela, your final words of wisdom. What do you want to impact? And then we're coming to you, Femi. Oh, you're muted, I think.
Said, and just go back to what Ngozi said, that baseline, if it's below 5, it's an early warning sign. It's a red flag, don't ignore it. And we talked about a long period of time. Here in the US, it's 2 weeks. So if Nigerians want to see that low baseline as 1 month, because everybody has to survive, it's fine, or 2 months, it's fine. But we do want to know that if, especially if it's a young person, if that baseline, I encourage our younger people to check into on their baseline. If that baseline remains low for a long period of time, they are at higher risk for suicide. I recently had 2 friends of mine, their daughters killed themselves. And so we can't undo that permanent solution to what is a temporary problem. A low mood below 5 is a temporary problem. So if there's nothing else we take from this, knowing that mood can change, and from Femi's example, we can get better. And from what Dr. Amma says, you will feel better. And these are all true. And taking Ngozi's talk about, checking with yourself. Checking with yourself daily. You can get better. You're not assigned to your genetics. You don't have to have that feeling of constantly being bad because that's how your genes are. But especially among our young people, people do die from this illness. People do die. And so, thinking about it earlier and getting that rescue is important. Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed speaking here today.
Thank you very much. Femi, do you have a last few words you want to impact before we close this session?
Well, again, thank you very much for having me. I do hope the dial is shifting. Saying it's shifted is overtly optimistic. I do hope that I'm able, or we've been able to encourage more conversations around the basis of mental health with everybody, but with men especially. And I look forward to the next time I'm invited to such. Thank you very much for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. And on that note, I have to say thank you to everyone who has been here since we started. We apologize again for starting late. Thank you to this wonderful panel for your honesty, for your truth, because all of you, you're telling your truth in one way or the other without actually stating it. For the wisdom that you impact, I hope that all of you will continue to make your mental health just as important as your physical health.